Life Audio.
The Bible Study Podcast, episode 895. Today, the Bible Study Podcast continues the study of the intertestamental period and First Maccabees with the beginning of chapter 7. Welcome to the Bible Study Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Christensen. We're continuing on with chapter 7 of Maccabees, and there's a whole new king. And we'll get to that in a minute, but first a word from this sponsor. First Maccabees starts this way. Expedition of Bacchides and Alcimus. In the 151st year, Demetrius, son of Seleucus, set out from Rome, sailed with a few men to a town by the sea, and there began to reign. As he was entering the royal palace of his ancestors, the army seized Antiochus and Lysias to bring them to him. But when this act became known to him, he said, "Do not let me see their faces." So the army killed them, and Demetrius took his seat on the throne of his kingdom. Now, I'm going to pause there for a second here because we've got a whole new king, and who is this guy? And this is also one of the first places in this part of the story that Rome comes into the picture. Now, again, we are in this intertestamental period. In the Old Testamental time, when we finish with the Old Testament, Rome is a fairly small regional player and really isn't that important yet. When we start the New Testament, we have the Roman Empire stretching the whole length of the Mediterranean Sea, and Rome is very important. And it is an empire, and is no longer a republic. But this is not the Rome that we're talking about here. We're still talking about the Roman Republic, but it's on the rise. They have fought a war a few years back, about 20, 30 years ago, with the Seleucid kingdom, and there was a peace treaty between them, and Demetrius was a hostage in Rome until this time. What the First Maccabees version doesn't talk about is that there was a peace treaty for that war between the Seleucid kingdom and the Romans. This is called the Roman-Seleucid War. It's from 192 to 188 BC, and there gets to be a peace treaty at the end of this, the Treaty of Appoints, and the Romans believe that the Seleucid kingdom is violating the peace treaty. They have too many elephants, was one of the things that was a problem, and they have too many warships, and both of those things were forbidden. And so the Romans are now sending into the mix of this conflict. Remember, the old king, Antiochus Epiphanes, has died. His son has come to the throne, and he is also Antiochus. That's the confusion here. And he still has Lysias acting as his regent. In other words, Lysias is in charge in the name of Antiochus. Well, not so much any longer. So Rome has released Demetrius. Demetrius takes control, and now we have a whole new king. Well, that's not great for the Judeans because, remember, we just finally declared peace between the Seleucid king, Antiochus, or Lysias, in fact, and the Maccabees. So problems are ahead. Then there came to him all the renegade and godless men of Israel. They were led by Alcimus, who wanted to be high priest. They brought to the king this accusation against the people: "Judas and his brothers have destroyed all your friends and have driven us out of the land. Now then, send a man whom you trust. Let us go and see all the ruin that Judas has brought on us and on the land of the king, and let him punish them and all who help them." So the king chose Bacchides, one of the king's friends, governor of the province beyond the river. He was a great man in the kingdom and was faithful to the king. He sent him, and with him he sent the ungodly Alcimus, who he made high priest, and he commanded him to take vengeance on the Israelites. So they marched away and came with a large force to the land of Judah. And he sent messengers to Judas and his brothers with peaceful but treacherous words. But they paid no attention to their words, for they saw they had come with a large force. Then a group of scribes appeared in a body before Alcimus and Bacchides to ask for just terms. The Hasidians were the first among the Israelites to seek peace from them, for they said, "A priest in the line of Aaron has come with the army, and he will not harm us." Alcimus spoke peaceful words to them and swore this oath to them: "We will not seek to injure you or your friends." So they trusted him, but he seized 60 of them and killed them in one day, in accordance with the word that was written: "The flesh of your faithful ones and their blood they poured out all around Jerusalem, and there was no one to bury them." Then the fear and dread of them fell on all the people, for they said, "There is no truth or justice in them, for they have violated the agreement and the oath they swore." Then Maccabees withdrew from Jerusalem and encamped in Beth-zaith, as he sent and seized many of the men who had deserted to him, and some of the people, and killed them and threw them in a great pit. He placed Alcimus in charge of the country and left him with a force to help him. Then Maccabees went back to the king. Alcimus struggled to maintain his high priesthood, and all who were troubling their people joined him. They gained control of the land of Judah and did great damage in Israel. And Judah saw all the wrongs that Alcimus and those with him had done among the Israelites. It was more than the nations had done. So Judah went out into all the surrounding parts of Judah, taking vengeance on those who had deserted and preventing those in the city from going out into the country. Then Alcimus saw that Judas and those with him had grown strong and realized he could not withstand them. He returned to the king and brought malicious charges against them. And so the king, who's just arrived and just been made king, gets this story that it's all a problem with Judas. Judas is the problem. Has nothing to do with what Antiochus Epiphanes did, how he started this fight by trying to get the Israelites to basically give up their faith. It's all a problem of Judas. If you just get rid of Judas, then everything's going to be good. And of course, why don't you make me high priest? And sends him and this trusted official, Maccabees, down here to see what's going on, sends him with a large force, and to deal with the Israelites. In other words, to deal with them harshly. And we get a mention here of the Hasidians, who are the first to seek peace from them. And this is an interesting group. We don't know a lot about who the Hasidians are, but the word means pious. And we think that these are the people who have refused to become Greek, that have been faithful in their faith. And they see that there's a high priest in the line of Aaron with these people, and they trust him, and they shouldn't. Now, the interesting thing about this is we don't know who these Hasidians are, and we think they may be related to the beginning of the Pharisees. Remember, we're going to come up with the Pharisees and the Sadducees during this intertestamental period. They're not in the Old Testament. They will be in the New Testament. So some scholars think these Hasidians, these people who have declared themselves to be faithful or pious, are the beginning of the Pharisees. And some know they're related to the Essenes. And if you're not aware of the Essenes, they're around in the time of the New Testament, but the New Testament doesn't talk about them. And they're the people who were lived out in the community of Qumran, where we get the Dead Sea Scrolls. Some think John the Baptist may have lived with that community. But basically, they're a Jewish sect that lived out in the desert to try and be pure. And so either one of those groups may be associated with this group of people who are deceived by this person who is sent down and been made high priest by the king. As it says, you'll know people by their fruit. You'll know them by their actions. Don't trust what someone says, but trust what they do. And it's very clear right away to people that Alcimus should not be trusted. He is breaking his word and having people killed. And so very quickly, people don't come to him. So he struggles to maintain his high priesthood. And then he realizes that Judas has become strong, and so he returns to the king as well. And that's the end of this chapter, but it was not the end of this story. We'll continue on next week. But with that, let's end this episode of the Bible Study Podcast. If you have any questions, send an email to chris2x@gmail.com, or better yet, leave a comment on this episode at thebiblestudypodcast.com. And thanks so much for listening. I want to take just a second to thank the team at Life Audio for their partnership with us on this podcast. If you go to lifeaudio.com, you'll find dozens of other faith-centered podcasts in their network. They've got shows about prayer, Bible study, parenting, and more.
What do you do when your world is falling apart? How do you march when it would be easier to stay where you are and die? Join me every week on the March or Die podcast, and we'll discuss that and so much more.